So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the second tabernacle services, where you find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Hamashiach laid waste from many centuries. As we read it in Yeshayahu the prophet, it's important firstly understanding what the Hamashiach has said regarding Mitchayahu, the 24th chapter, regarding the time of the end and the events related with the time of the restoration of the holy cities, and also a couple more layers related with military and also the area of trade. Now then, it's very important learning the Hebrew language, so then the prophecies can be studied, and understandably the scripture is not layered regarding numbers, neither chapters, verses, and punctuation. So then the Western mind of understanding of the scripture does not have any relation with the original manuscripts and the way the people of the time of those scriptures were reading and understanding them. So then, based from this particular situation, we find then in the 11th chapter of Daniel, the 39th verse, there is a layer of understanding related with the kingdom of China. Now then, the culture of the time, while they were doing their trade, they were involved with nations. This scripture is very pertinent because it shows that China, or the kingdom of the East, related with the knowledge they shall rule and they shall divide. Now the scripture in Hebrew is very clear as far as this system, since the 11th chapter is not in chronological order as per event. That's the great problem with religion, because they tend to read in a chronological order when they are not. So obviously the Gentile mind, without the Hebrew script and the Hebrew language, they simply cannot understand. So then they simply say the God is in charge and He is in control and He does what He must, and then they claim themselves saved, and there is no requirement for reading the scripture, no requirement for reading the Torah. But the problem is, as the nations of the West are obviously weakened by this new system, what are then the requirements in order for the system then, after a deal is made, then come out with great wealth. So while the nations are obviously going through a very tough economical period of time, China exclusively is directing the trade of the end. And the nations, they can't do anything about it, because the scripture already mentioned this is the way it should be. Now, the nations are so late in their understanding of the power system of China and the powerful system that they have, that even if they would start it today, coming up with a flexible network so they would be able to get every monetary system in the planet either centralized or decentralized, most importantly decentralized. It would take them a long time to get lined up with a simultaneous system side to side with China's main network. Now, many nations, they don't have a clue because they are not reading from the original source. A lot of people, they read the scripture, there's simply a bunch of things that already has gone through. They don't understand beans about it. They read, they don't understand it. But then they claim the divine is going to guide them, while the nation then ruins in front of their very own eyes. So then, as far as the system of China, why then it's so important? In order for the people to understand the Holy Scripture, they must understand politics. They must understand the nation's monetary systems, centralized system, decentralized systems. Because it's not only giving oneself over to pleasure only, and then going to a church every 7 days. This does not grant salvation. In fact, it is a cycle of simple traditions, while then the economical system of the nation is going down further. Now, that is one thing being optimistic. The other is being enlightened. This particular scripture explains of a alien divinity that brings knowledge. So then the situation is, nations are very late as far as what they should be doing. Our country is late. The rest of the countries of Central America and South America, they are late. A lot of countries, they don't even consider having online trade. But these understandings does not take away the authority from the Holy Instruction. The scripture, the content of Hebrew and the writing in Aramaic But this particular section of Daniel explicitly states that this system that has an alien divinity shall with great knowledge and then wilt rule and shalt divide many powers. Now there is one thing of being convinced and not doing anything about it. Now obviously the nations are late, very late, as far as this simultaneous system side to side with the Chinese system. Very late. Because we are not talking of religion, we are talking of trade. Now, people when grab the Bible say, oh, what kind of a trade a person is thinking when reading the Bible? Isn't that religious? So then, these layers related with this system is directly related with the 21st verse of the 11th chapter and the system that was despised. Now, despised does not mean simply rejecting a system. It's talking about a weakened system. And because the tone of divinity related with the scripture, because of the culture of the time, it's showing then the danger of Christianity no longer exists. It's absolutely clear the Holy Scripture, when relates with trade and relates with some sort of a divine. When the trade of certain nations, they were ruined, the particular religion was wiped away. Now the Hebrew scripture states very clear every step of the way regarding then these nation then ruling over many other nations. So countries should be concerned of coming together as an utmost emergency situation and come up with a plan. Because the scripture already states this particular verse of the 39 in the 11th chapter links up with the merchants of Galah or Revelation. But Galah, Revelation, when speaking of the merchants, is already in the future tense. Already has taken place. And by that time in the future, taxes and trade and freighters, they are already linked. That's the problem when people they get religious and they don't understand the layers related with the scripture. Now, it's not only the trade that's going to make China rule over the other nations. Now, does not mean the other nations are not going to have sovereignty. It's simply the linking up of these systems then is going to force any place that these nations are receiving products from China, then taxation is properly fixed. So the nations are dependent from these rules and regulations coming from the Chinese system. It's no longer an option, as you can start your computer and make your selection. You can buy with American money, you can buy with any other system, or you can buy with any other value of money. And there are a lot of gaps and lack of taxation in many countries. Now, when the system of China is launched in its entirety, then the nations won't be able to get back. They're going to be forced of complying with the existing system because of taxes. So then the main question is, since nations are trying to get through this time of transition, what are they going to do about it? Sit around, do nothing until the system comes Now the problem with this is the more the nations are neglecting of a flexible network, the harder it's going to be for them to get then the system started. And the worst of this entire situation is people hiding their money, buying decentralized monetary systems and not paying a dime for taxes. That's the main danger. It's not only optional of, oh, this nation can do this nation can do that, this nation can do the other. So, if they don't come up with a system, not only they won't be able to line themselves up in the future, but then the people buying decentralized money, they won't pay any taxes. So it's not only a question if, well, maybe the nations can do this, maybe the nation can do that, as if these systems were optional. At this time of the restoration period and the time of the trade of the end, there is no option. Because as Daniel is explaining the future, he's also explaining the rulership of this particular system. Now, since nations, they have their sovereignties, How could a nation so far away could rule over them? And the Hebrew is very clear. He's truly ruling. It's because it depicts a network. Using monies that the nations simply they can't deal with it. So please stay tuned, much more coming up.